This presentation will focus on the ways in which the British Empire impacted its policies in the Cold War through 1945 to 1956. After the end of World War II in 1945, Britain viewed itself as victorious, but did not leave the war unscathed. Britain suffered from major economic losses through its contributions. Going forward, it was necessary for Britain to establish new strategies in order to adapt to the changes they encountered, domestically and globally. The Cold War invited an untraditional method of dealing with conflict, defined as the lack of stable peace, competition in the arms race, and ideological/geopolitical struggles, which defined the coming years as Western powers aimed to dominate and control the spread of the Soviet rule. The policies Britain implemented in its empire to approach the New World Order included its aims to maintain status as a world power despite economic difficulty, management of international alliances, especially with the US, a strong ally, development of atomic power and nuclear deterrence, and lastly, suppressing Soviet influence in Europe and throughout the globe. In this cabinet document, a meeting took place the 24th of June, 1947, shortly after World War II. It details a discussion on new policies for Britain's empire, including foreign affairs and goals towards economic recovery. In attendance were two important figures in Britain's efforts in the Cold War era: Prime Minister Clement Attlee and Secretary of Foreign Affairs Ernest Bevin. In maintaining its status as a world power, in the cabinet document, Bevin states, it was also essential that we should consider at once the nature of our own contribution to European recovery and the bearing of this on our own domestic plans. Referring to the economic state Britain found itself in currently, Britain's reliance on imports from the US required a need for a cutback on imports to reduce spending, which is detailed further in this document on the cuts in the import program on food. In the alliance with the US, Bevin further details on the proposed European reconstruction plan. The first step would be to reach agreement on the necessary machinery for the preparation of detailed proposals for communication to the United States government. This was foreshadowing to the Marshall Plan, which he aided in securing, a US-funded program established in 1948, which improved Western European rebuilding processes post-war, strengthening economies which Britain benefited from greatly, receiving more financially from the plan than other countries. Lastly, Britain's shift towards decolonization to partner with Western allies, ideologies, Attlee states, the Prime Minister at the time, reminded the cabinet that when the proposed constitutional changes took place in India, it would be necessary for the king to divest himself of the title Emperor of India. Ernest Bevin, who was Secretary of State in Attlee's administration during 1945 to 51, was a member of the Labour Party. He was the Minister of Labor during Winston Churchill's wartime coalition. Clement Attlee, who was Prime Minister at the time, from 1945 to 1951, was also a member of the Labour Party and maintained socialist views on government, and under his administration created the NHS. Attlee's atomic diplomacy refers to his goals towards a united Western force on atomic power. After the US bombings in Japan in 1945, he stressed the growing necessity of atomic bombs in the international power struggle, its importance for safety and status. Detailed in this Oxford DNB article by Whitting, Attlee's role lay partly in supporting Bevin's view that any British Foreign Secretary needed a nuclear deterrent in order to be able to negotiate as a major power, but also in the way the policymaking process was structured. Despite US deterrence with the McMahon Act, Attlee hoped for more openness to alliance in the future. yet the commissioning for their own atomic bomb was underway. The Berlin blockade in 1948 represented the growing tensions between Soviet Union and Western powers. The Soviet Union saw the rebuilding of Germany as a threat, leading to a blockade to cut off resources, blocking railroad and water access to Allied power sections of Germany, met with obvious opposition in Anthony Eden encouraging a strong stance against Soviets. Bevin playing a key role in the planning process, pointing to the empire's efforts to suppress Soviet control. Yet America played a role in supplying resources for the carrier aircrafts as Britain was still struggling with economic situation domestically. NATO joined together Europe and North America in efforts against the Soviet situation that was a growing concern. Britain made many efforts to maintain this alliance. Britain entering the Korean War because of NATO, also accepting to be a junior partner of the US as they struggled financially. In an effort to please their allies, particularly the US, Britain contributed to the Korean War at their own risk, causing a domestic failure by the Labour government, as their citizens had to pay for prescription medicine in order to fund war efforts, leading to internal conflict within the party, later contributing to the Labour government losing an election, leading to Attlee's retirement. As a final effort to uphold imperial standing, Britain engaged in the Suez Canal crisis after nationalization of Suez Canal Company by President Nasser. Britain perceived it as a threat on their sovereignty and power and in conflict with their international economic plans. Met with much opposition from the US and the UN, the US threatened with economic retaliation, forcing them to withdraw, which was a major embarrassment. Britain had to come to recognize the emerging powers of the US and the Soviet Union in this new world order, with alliances being their only hope at maintaining their power.